Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending Designing for Success, the Implementation of DIY Information Literacy for Faculty. My name is Catherine Neary, and this is Rachel Zyrek.
Hello.
And we are reference and instruction librarians at Massasoit Community College in Brockton, Mass. So our learning objectives for today are to discuss information literacy trends on a large scale, especially to distance students. We also hope to help practitioners to think creatively about online information literacy programs at your schools. And we also want to promote collaborations with other offices on campus who have a natural intersection with library goals. So let's start with a quick poll. Just with a show of hands, do you provide online information literacy instruction? Oh, great. Does your library have information literacy tutorials? And since so many of you have said yes, have you enjoyed success in such endeavors? So to begin, I'd like to just quickly talk about trends in information literacy and current information literacy practices. So as academic librarians who have an interest in information literacy, we're aware of the trends in the field, we keep up with the literature, but there's also, of course, a curiosity to know what other people are doing. And so a review of the literature tells us that other schools are doing one-shot sessions, LibGuides and other web guides, interactive tutorials, video recordings, flipped classroom models, embedded librarian programs, and then also credit and non-credit information literacy courses. And college and research libraries did a recent survey of instructional practices in U.S. academic libraries. And so if you're interested, there's a link in your bibliography that will take you directly to that. So online education is growing rapidly. And because of that growth, we need to provide equitable service to distance students in the same way that we do to our face-to-face students. So we have really a responsibility as librarians to make sure that our distance students are getting the same services and experiences. And so because online education is only going to continue to become more prevalent, online information literacy instruction is going to aid us in being able to provide students with those equitable services. And research shows us that online information literacy instruction, when it's well implemented and properly placed within the course, can be just as effective for student achievement as face-to-face instruction. We also have the ability to engage different learning styles for students who are doing information literacy instruction online. So they might be able to tap into their visual learning skills, or if they prefer to hear things many times, they have the option of doing that with online information literacy instruction. And we also have a convenience factor, both for students and for faculty. So for faculty, we all hear the same stories. Time is very tight within the course of the semester. And we know that faculty feel very strongly about information literacy. They know that it's critical to student success. But of course, those time constraints are really difficult. And when we move some of our information literacy instruction online, we're able to give faculty the opportunity to assign tutorials and other instruction outside of class as homework. And for students, we'll get into this a little bit further, but at our college, our students are dealing with lots of different life issues. They're busy with jobs and time commitments. And when they can do online information literacy instruction, they're able to do that at a time that's comfortable and convenient for them. And it also gives them the opportunity to self-pace. They can do things when it's convenient for them. So many videos have closed captioning and other resources available to make online information literacy instruction more helpful to students. And the other thing to keep in mind is that faculty are often concerned with higher order skills when it comes to information literacy. So they want to make sure that students are thinking about critical thinking, academic integrity and honesty, and also important issues like how to evaluate sources. And a lot of times, as I'm sure we've all experienced, in a one-shot session, we don't have time to get into a lot of those higher order skills that we know are really important, because we want to make sure that students are equipped with the skills that they need in order to complete the research assignment that they came to the library to work on. So if students are able to take their information literacy online, a lot of times we can cover those higher order tasks through videos in other ways. And of course, the thing to remember with online information literacy is that typically the information that students are seeing is consistently formatted. Again, they have the opportunity to self-pace, and it's also broken down into smaller pieces. So that cognitive load that so many students feel at the end of a one-shot can be lessened because they can go back and watch something more than once. And the other thing to keep in mind is that online information literacy is available at multiple points of need. So we know that students are more successful with information literacy when it's either tied to an assignment or it's tied to the point of need where they're at that particular moment. And when we have information that's available online, students can access it at their own convenience, and it can be embedded in multiple places. So we can have tutorials and videos in our learning management system. It can also be on the library website. And then even if you have a video channel like YouTube, you can find them there as well.
Okay, so this is me. How many of you are familiar with the city of Brockton in Massachusetts? Okay, so I'm going to give you a little rundown on the community that we support and how information literacy and online learning look there. Brockton is the home of Rocky Marciano. It's also the home of Marvin Hagler, who was at our graduation apparently a couple of weeks ago, and I used to box. So it's all a big circle in life, right? It's called the City of Champions, and it's a tough town. Brockton has about 96,000 people in it. It's a majority minority, meaning that the minority population comprises the majority of people in the city. 27% of the people are immigrants, okay? And that has been a very interesting thing for me to as a librarian, to assist people who are coming from other countries in a variety of circumstances, often with advanced degrees from their home, but don't have English skills, trying to get them prepared. So it's a high crime area, high gain area, high drug use area. It's got a bad reputation. It is south of Boston, on your way to the Cape and Cape Cod. And I kind of like the city, but it's a tough place. So why do I have this thing? Yeah, okay. So pulling some stats together, I put a little infographic together, and you can see that Brockton across the board is not operating at the same level as Massachusetts, okay? This is median household income, so they're at 67% of the state average. The city, if you live there, your property value is at 68% of the state average, and this number messed me up and I had to write it down last night. So if you live in Brockton, 17% of you have a bachelor's degree versus 41% for the entire state. This number, the 141, I had to do this 3 times last night. I've never been a word problem person. If you are a Brockton resident, you are 141% less likely to have a college degree compared to the rest of Massachusetts, okay? And what this looks like in real terms, there was just the Boston Globe, there was just an article, Brockton is considering suing the state, the public education system is considering suing the state because of examples like this. In Brockton, students are allotted $1.28 for classroom supplies. In Weston, which granted has the highest property value in the state, it's $275 per student. So we're talking about a 21,000% difference in support of students in the classroom, okay? These are the students that are coming to our community college that we are trying to, I'm just throwing this away, that we are trying to support at the collegiate level. And what it ends up looking like is 70% of our students, they test into developmental courses. They are not ready for college. This is what it looks like in the classroom. So if you have a 20-person class, 14 of them are not ready for college. Okay? I think that's a pretty powerful thing. So we as librarians come into a Comp 1 class and 14 of the students are not ready to hear what we have to say. We've got about 7,000 students and equating to about 4,500 FTE. And Brockton's the main campus, but we have auxiliary campuses in Canton and Middleborough to address other needs. And there's different programmings at each of the campuses. So, Kay and I are new to Massasoit. I've been there 4 years, Kay's been there for 2 years. In 2015, we had a group of librarians all retire. The entire library retired, except for the director and me. And we formed a new team, and what we inherited was this program. About 200 face-to-face interactions a year, most of them in humanities, okay? And then a little bit, I think it's over 75% were humanities, it's all English comp. This is a snapshot of the online learning community at Massasoit. So 93% of our students take face-to-face instruction and online classes. Right? That's a large percentage. Watch the blue because it's going to shrink. Okay. For all enrollments, 7,000 enrollments, this percentage, 15% are in online classes. And MCC students enrolled in online classes only 7%. Okay? And this is the library's online instruction program. There was the old bit, okay? We had, when Kay started, there were 2 online videos, both of which were completely outdated. One using the MCAT, which we don't, the catalog, and the other one doing a website that we immediately got rid of as soon as the new team was formed. And there'll be more discussion about that later. Okay?
Okay. So in the meantime, as we were working to develop our new team and figure out where we wanted to go, we had begun to coordinate with our Writing Center. And you'll hear a little bit more from Erin Hart, who's the coordinator of our Writing Center. But in the winter of 2017, just as we were getting our ideas together about sort of what we wanted to do for an information literacy tutorial program, we started talking with Erin about the services that the Writing Center and the library offer. And in talking with Erin, we realized that there was a real natural synergy between the Writing Center and the library, because when you think about it, the writing process and the research process are so intertwined in so many different areas. So I'll let Erin explain a little bit more. Oops.
There's a speaker in the bottom right corner. No, up a little bit, light brown. No.
In the brown box.
In the brown box.
Thank you. Talk about thinking on your feet. I think that's what we do in the classroom.
Center coordinator at Massasoit Community College. I also teach writing in the English department. I'm absolutely delighted to be partnering with the library to address information literacy needs on campus. This partnership made sense because both the library and the Writing Center have a really unique perspective on teaching and learning. We see behind the scenes, both in terms of faculty and in terms of the students. So we noticed that both the library and the Writing Center were
So really what began as an idea for a handout to give to students and faculty blossomed into a bigger idea. And when Erin talks about behind the scenes, that's really what we see in the library and in the Writing Center. So we're seeing the research perspective from what the student is going through at that time. And so we realized that what we really needed was to have that student perspective in creating the tutorials that we wanted to design. So that brings me to this chart here. Last spring, we spoke at a local writing conference to faculty, mainly in English, and we were interested in talking about the assumptions that we make about students and their information literacy skills. So in preparing, what we did was we created a chart and we went through and we thought about every step that a student would need in order to complete each step in the writing process, in the research process. And so as you can see, we realized that we were making lots of assumptions about the knowledge and skills that students would have. For example, before you can locate and evaluate sources, you need to know how to access the library website, you need to know which databases to use, and you also need to have search skills, so how to use keywords and modify your search as you go along. So there's a lot of different pieces that are involved. And that brings us to this chart. When we presented to faculty, we put this idea into sort of a more linear format. So you have a copy of this in your handout, and we gave faculty a sample essay prompt, and then we moved them through all the different steps. So reading the assignment of planning research, preliminary research, locating and evaluating sources, synthesizing, drafting, and then revising. And what we asked faculty to do was to think about not only the steps and knowledge that students would have to have in order to complete that step, but also to think about the time that it would take a student, and then think about the different ways that we can support students throughout the process. And in the hour-long session that we had, we never actually got past the first step, because there was so much discussion and we realized that there was so much that we weren't thinking about in terms of the knowledge and skills that we really needed to equip students with. And that was really important for us as well. It gave us an idea of what it's like to go in and remember what it was like to start the research process, and then that could really inform the way we designed our information literacy tutorials.
Can I say something?
Of course.
I think it's really important, and I talk about this with the students all the time, like, as librarians, we're really good at this and care about this stuff too, right? Like, I love this stuff, but for a lot of students, they don't really care. It's something that they have to do in order to get the degree, and it's not an enjoyable process for them. So I think for us to recognize that we're making a lot of assumptions, and one of the assumptions is that this is a pleasant experience.
That's true.
And it's not.
Even though it's fun for us to plan this out and figure out every step, it's different when you're in the trenches.
Exactly.
And speaking of what's fun for us, as opposed to them, that brings me to the Team Truthiness module map. And after we decided that we wanted to use the student's perspective for our tutorials, we divided it up into 4 different sections. So reading your, just refresh myself here. As many times as I say it, I always get the wording confused. Reading the assignment, locating and evaluating sources, synthesizing information, and picking your topic. I should include that right under read the assignment. So what we did was we broke up those 4 big sections into smaller subsections. So the skills that you would need in order to be able to pick your topic or synthesize your sources. And since this was a collaborative project, which we'll talk about a little bit further, we divided the Team Truthiness module map into different colors. So every librarian had a color, and we chose what videos we wanted to upload to our tutorials, and then what accountability measure we wanted to include.
I think we made 16.
Yes, we made 16, and then we borrowed 16 from other libraries as well. So that's one nice thing about the library world, is that everybody's very collaborative.
Yeah, and so those 4 processes were broken down into 32, if my math is right. Right, 32 different.
Yep, 32.
Yeah.
And so we designed them in a way that faculty can import them into their courses as they see fit. So it's really a kind of a pick and choose model that they can use. And for today's purposes, we also have a LibGuide that you can take a look at. There's also a link on your handout, and this is our tutorials reside in Canvas, which is the learning management system that Massasoit uses. But we wanted faculty to have kind of a menu approach when they're deciding what they want to import, since things don't always look quite as nice when you're actually in Canvas. And so we do a little bit of explaining about what's contained in each tutorial. So just briefly, it's always a video, some type of accountability measure, and that's something that's optional for the faculty to choose whether or not they want to use the accountability measure. And those include things like quizzes, worksheets, and then there's a few different discussions as well. So speaking of assumptions about student knowledge, we also included a library orientation module. So particularly as we're going to be seeing more students coming in who are exclusively online, we want them to know what we have available to them. So we included some information about the librarians and some fun facts about us. We don't know how many hints that gets. But we also have information about how to ask for help, since we have chat and email and lots of different ways that anyone, regardless of where they are, can contact us. And then just how to use Discovery, so how to just do a really basic search.
You mentioned keeping track of things. Do you do any kind of tracking of statistics on your information literacy stuff? When you mentioned, for example, the subtitles, captioning.
Yes.
Do you have any idea how many people use captioning? Is there any way to measure that? Or just as an example?
We host all of our videos on our YouTube channel, so we can see how many hits they get.
Yeah.
But as far as captioning, I'm not sure that we have any way of knowing how many people opt to use that.
I don't know if it's nationwide, but at our university, the caption, if you're ADA compliant, you have to have a caption, so.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering how many people are using it.
Yeah.
Because some people would use it because they have to use it. Other people might use it because they prefer to use it.
Yeah.
I have watched so many foreign films and television shows that I now watch everything
With captions.
with captions. So who knows? The option is there, and I think in YouTube they automatically run with the captions
They do.
in them.
Yeah.
So the person would have to choose to turn them off and figure out how to do that. So they may be forced to use the caption.
So as I click over here to our modules, if I, for example, clicked on locating sources, this gives faculty a sense of what they can expect to find within that section. And then if anyone is interested, you can also view our YouTube channel and all the different playlists that go along with each module. So if you're in the LibGuide, if you click right up here, you can see the full list of videos that we included with our Finding Sources module.
So this is the website version of it. The stuff that you move into Canvas looks completely different than this.
Yes, this is a little bit more attractive for the viewing public.
Canvas is pretty ugly.
And we also wanted to show you a video. So as I mentioned before, we do have a mixture of videos that we created ourselves and ones that we borrowed from other libraries. And this is a favorite of mine. This is one that Rachel put together on the information cycle. So again, looking at those higher order skills that can be tough to cover in a class. And the nice thing about this is that a student could watch this more than once if they really wanted to get into it and understand it a little bit further. And this is also about the average length of videos that we have in our tutorials. So they're somewhere between 2 to 4 minutes.
Understanding where on the information cycle your article was generated helps you assess its value to your research. Here, we will break down this well-known graphic into working parts while using a historic event. The red arrow depicts time moving left to right. Note that the top row denotes the kinds of information you can expect to see over time, from initial reaction to a set of conventional facts. Below the red arrow is a breakdown of source types as they emerge in time.
local flair. And honestly, like, people respond to that. I know that it's not necessarily, and, you know, I'm a little embarrassed, because my accent comes out and I stutter a little bit, but it's real.
Right, and that's what a lot of our students are used to coming from the South Shore. So some of the next steps for us in our Massasoit Library's information literacy modules. This summer, we're working on an assessment project using the LEAP value rubrics for written communication and information literacy. We put out a call to students to submit a research paper anonymously, and they could enter to win a $100 gift card to a bookstore. And we actually got over 100 papers, so we have a lot ahead of us in terms of that, but it'll be really interesting to see the results. In the summer and continuing into the fall, we really want to work more on marketing our modules to faculty and working more on faculty development. So now that we've created them about a year ago and they've been there, we want to make sure that faculty are aware and being able to use them in a way that's helpful to them. And next year, in 2019, in the spring and summer, we're hoping to work on a discipline-based series, so getting more into the disciplines, and since we do so much with the comps right now. And then we're also working on a social justice module series as well.
The assessment project is a big project that we actually brought a couple of teams, and it's one of the only, we're supposed to be doing all this assessment on campus, right? But we're, right now, the only people doing this kind of large assessment project. So that's kind of exciting. So we're gonna shift, yes,
Quick question.
Yes, of course.
Do you get a lot of papers from across disciplines, or?
yes, we did. Yes, we did. Not as many science papers as I was hoping, as I'm the science person on campus, but there were a couple. There were some honors papers, there were comp papers. History, business.
Yep.
Yep, so yes, we
Was
did
the
get it.
prerequisite saying that if you did a library class, then you enter, just enter
Nope.
your-
The prerequisite was it had to have a bibliography. It had to be a research paper. That was the only prerequisite. And you wouldn't believe some of the stuff that people, one person sent me photos from their phone of, I went in and I did all the redaction of the information, and there were actual, the upload was a phone of the paper. And I'm like, I'm throwing this one out, I get nothing of this. So out of the 125 we got, I think we ended up with about 100.
Yep.
Maybe 105 or something like that. 20 of them got thrown out. Are there any other questions about that? So we're gonna kind of change gears into the collaboration piece. Yes?
I was just curious as to what you used to create the video. Did you start with something and then actual video?
We use Camtasia for everything. So in some cases, we do a live screencast of the website or a database. But in the example of Rachel's video, we use PowerPoint usually and record that.
Okay.
Yeah, and the thing that I did was based on what someone else did. Okay, you may have seen a Hurricane Katrina one before, but I think it was too long. Like we looked at everything and talked amongst ourselves. Is this appropriate for our 70% developmental class, or is it too high level, or is it too long? Is it too short? Is it hitting all the points that we want to make sure that we hit? And if it didn't, if we couldn't find something inappropriate, we made it ourselves.
Where are these located in your course management system? Is that up to the faculty to decide where they're gonna put them, or do you have like the library somewhere, the library videos somewhere?
We do have our YouTube channel where all of the videos are listed, but in Canvas, it's its own site. And so we add faculty who are interested to the site as collaborators, and then they can pull in what they want. It's a little bit clunky.
It is a little clunky. We're working on the clunkiness.
It is, yeah.
It's we have about 40 faculty members signed up right now on this thing. I think that's the right number. So that's the do-it-yourself part, right? Because a faculty member might care less about the information cycle and force feeding that to the faculty. They're like, I don't want this, but I need the whole thing on reading the assignment or the citation part. So that way they can pick and choose. They're in charge versus us coming in and saying, this is what we're going to do. So we offer everything. Yes?
How do you keep track of who's using it? So you have an idea of exactly which departments, which level, everything that's using it. How do you keep track?
Well, because there's so few people.
Yeah, and Massasoit is small too, so
Yeah.
a lot of our regulars are the ones who originally wanted to be included in the module. So we can
Yes.
also see, it's a little big brother, I guess, in a way, but we can see how long people have spent within the module. So we sort of have a sense in some ways of who might be engaging with them more.
Yeah, and we talk directly to those faculty members. So one of the marketing things is we have to get to the adjuncts, because the adjunct faculty are really the ones teaching the large portion, and we've got to figure out how to really do that this summer and get to them and so that they can incorporate this stuff. They don't even necessarily know it's there. So someone would contact us, the process is a professor would contact us, we manually add them to the course site, and then we can see what they're doing.
Yes.
Just add them all in and have them call you.
That's one idea. We'll consider that one. Any other questions about this? Okay, so I'm going to talk about collaboration. Okay, I've worked in higher ed for 20 years at a variety of different institutions, and I have run the gamut of collaborations, from really, really toxic, dysfunctional teams to the fabulousness that we have going on now. This is Jesse Schreier, who's also new to Massasoit. I think he joined about a year and a half ago. And he is our online learning dude. Okay, so I'm going to let him talk for a minute.
Hello, my name is Jesse Schreier, and I'm the coordinator of Instructional Technology at Massasoit Community College, and the admin for our LMS, our Learning Management System, which is Canvas. I was very excited to partner with the library on this project because information literacy is vitally important to our country, and therefore our students. So, really great project. The expertise I have is largely with teaching online and the learning management system itself. So I think I was able to help the librarians build the content in Canvas that they wanted to give to faculty, and I was able to help the faculty get the content that the librarians made into their individual course sites. So I hope that I helped with that. Is there anything else relevant other than librarians are awesome, and you guys really help so much with our education, and I really want to thank our librarians for engaging in this project. We have a really great start, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work to help with information literacy on this campus. So keep up the great work. Thank you very much.
We love Jesse. He's always in a flannel shirt. He's always right, and he's kind of a bumbling professor. Like he's always kind of lost. Yeah, he's a wonderful man.
What is his professor again?
What's that?
What is his department?
He's online learning. So he works with all of the faculty on their Canvas sites. He is the online learning coordinator. He has his PhD in history. He's also a professor there, and is just a funny man.
Yeah, he was really vital to us in the Canvas portion of what we did.
Yeah. So that was bringing in the expertise that we needed that we didn't have. We'll talk a little bit about that. All right, so some of this might seem familiar to some of you. I arrived at Massasoit in 2014, and I walked into the library, which was full of these lovely, wonderful women working really hard, and it was still 1999. Okay, I had come from the private sector where all of the bells and whistles had been implemented in like 2002, and at Massasoit, there was no journal finder. Okay, my question when I ask, like, when someone comes with a citation, how do you find out where it lives? And they're like, oh, we just direct them to something else.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, our students don't need that. And I'm like, no, they do need that. There was no easy proxy, so students had to register, had to fill out a form with the library in order to get access to stuff offline, off campus. Everything was difficult there. There was no one search. There's still no one card. Students have to fill out forms and what. And basically, the entire culture of the place was that. Yes. Oh, I have 5 minutes. Okay. So, everything, an example of this. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago was convocation. And I was doing a breakout session for convocation. I wanted 3 easels and some paper to be delivered to the room, okay? A simple request. It took me 2 hours of my time to track down exactly who I needed to contact to get these things delivered, okay? It should have been a 3-minute whatever, and instead I had a chunk of time taken out of my day, never mind all the people who I had to contact and waste their time, okay? So that's the culture at Massasoit and had been for a long time. It's very siloed, and there are these personal thieves, okay? I have the power. You've got to fill out the form. If the form's not filled out right, you've got to do it again. I don't know if this resonates. I see some smiles. Yes?
Feels like that's just the state bureaucracy.
Well, and the librarians were the same way. Okay, so I walk in and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Okay, this is interesting. There was no collaboration going on campus. That is changing over the past couple of years. In the library, we were very lucky that this whole group of librarians, again, who had the best of intentions, lovely women. I'm not saying that they were bad people, but operating under a different paradigm, okay, than what the 21st century requires. I blame it on the president, okay, and I'm just being honest with people right now. We had a president come in 1999. He was there for 18 years. He has just left, and the place is still in 1999. And I don't think that there is I don't think that's a coincidence. I think he just, that was it. Which is probably very naughty of me to say, but I am the naughty librarian. So I just say that. I'm speaking my truth. We'll get to that. Speaking the truth. So, essentially, in preparing for this talk, okay, I looked at the business world. I looked at the business literature instead of the library literature about collaboration. I just went through the Key Talent Program, which is basically for public higher ed in Massachusetts, and the facilitators of this program brought in a lot of the business literature. So I get online, I find this McKinsey stuff, and they're talking exactly about this thing, that there are 3 different kinds of workers in the world. There's transformational workers, who are your farmers and your miners who take raw materials and turn them into something. There are transactional workers, who are your clerks, your accountants, your analytical chemists, okay? And all of that stuff is being automated, okay? Because machines can do it faster than the human brain can do it, all right? And then you have your interactive workers. Those are your teachers, your managers, okay? Your sales force, the people whose job it is to work with other people. And that's never going to be automated, okay? And if you listen to some of the gurus, they're talking about, like, that's what we have to focus in on, because jobs in the world are going away because of automation and artificial intelligence. And because of that, we as educators really need to facilitate that process through our students. We've got to make them critical thinkers. We have to make them able to get up in front of people and talk and be honest and be able to collaborate. So here's this little definition from the McKinsey article about interactive workers. They deal with ambiguity in their complex interactions, often drawing upon deep experience and knowledge to exercise high levels of judgment. Doesn't that sound like what you do every day in your transactions? I know it's what I do. I would also like to note that this McKinsey article, The Shift from Transactional Workers to Interactive Workers, came out in 2005. It's old. But because it's still 1999 in Massasoit, they missed this, all right? They're still thinking in terms of manufacturing, okay? Students are inputs and outputs. Fill out the form, okay? That all has to go away. Does this sound familiar to people? Okay. So, we had an opportunity when all the librarians left, except for one who became the director and me, to change things in the library. Okay, the first thing we did was we got rid of all the reference books. I got rid of all the reference books. We had a place full of reference books, and no place for the students to sit. And these big round tables that sat 8. Okay, there was no flexibility. The library, all the windows were blocked by the reference books. These high things. We tore it all out and put them into circulation. Okay, and really transformed the vibe. And then we brought people in, and having worked in a variety of libraries in the past, I didn't want to set up the same old, okay? I really wanted to bring a group of people together that could work well together and build something, because we had an opportunity. I saw an opportunity to help this community in a really, really robust way. And so we hired the fabulousness of Kay, we've got fabulous Erin, we've got fabulous Madge, I'm fabulous, and we have done an unbelievable amount of work. First thing I did was I got rid of the books. Second thing, once everyone got on board, we built a website out of LibGuides. Then we taught a bunch of classes, right, and just tried to get used to one another. And then we put on our one-book events, which are these like huge nightmares within this bureaucracy trying to get things moving. So I want to talk a little bit about how we interact with one another, how we collaborate as a team. Oh, sorry, I forgot about this slide. This slide is my breakdown of what people do in their jobs, what interactive workers do in their jobs. It's hard to read this. I was expecting this thing to be huge so you could read it. 28% of your time reading and answering email. 19% of your time searching and gathering information. For me, it's more than that. I'm trying to get the easels. 14% communicating and collaborating internally. And then 40% of your time doing role-specific tasks. Does that sound about right to people? Sound right? Yeah? No? Maybe not? Okay. There wasn't a lot of communicating and collaborating internally. I would put that 14% up there at Massasoit. All right, so here's my statement about our team. I read this book written by Maddie and Kashoba from that key talent thing. It's called Resilience at Work. And it says, you support people in a resilient way by creating relationships that are effective, satisfying, and intimate. In consistent patterns of destructive competition and overprotection, however, supportive connections break down. So I know for myself, when I became a librarian at 29,
I wanted to be the smartest person in the room. I was not a self-confident person. And I was threatened by the strong people that were in my team. And that's just me being honest with myself, looking back 20 years, okay? And because of that, what I was putting out there came right back at me, right? People started competing with me, and it was not a happy place, okay? And I found this going on and on and on in my life until I changed and grew up a little bit and reflected that, you know, maybe I can support others and shut my mouth. I'm a chatty, right? Shut my mouth and let other people succeed. And maybe I would feel better within the team if I held other people up. So, with those good and bad experiences, I came to realize how important coworkers are. And these authors actually talk about coworkers as significant others, okay? Which is interesting. So they define them as significant others, regularly influence each other's performance, effectiveness, self-worth, self-definition, and sense of common cause in the institution. Does that, I mean, I know I've been in a toxic work environment before. I went home and go to sleep at 7 o'clock at night, right? I don't know if others have had experiences like that before, but my work environment affects my life outside of work. And I think that's because we're interactive workers and we rely on our relationships versus someone who works on a production line, punches in their clock, does their thing, and they're out of there. That's a different mentality, okay? So, essentially, bringing yourself to this place requires a sense of vulnerability, a sense of maturity, a sense of accepting this is my crap and not putting it out on the team, okay? A sense of self-reflection, and commanding yourself through your life that way, it rubs off on other people. And that expectation of your own behavior, other people kind of, okay, well, she's not freaking out, so maybe I need to, you know, kind of keep my stuff inside. And yet we're intimate with one another. My coworkers and I, we're friends, you know, and we have a great time. We work in a very stressful circumstance. We have no offices. We sit on the floor of the library and are interrupted every 2.5 seconds by the 1,000 students that walk in and out of the library every day, okay, during the school year. And yet we're able to be kind to one another and collaborate and do an immense amount of work, and it's because we respect each other and view each other as significant others. So this is our lovely team. This is Erin McCoy, who is integral to this whole thing. She's brilliant. She's actually presenting at another conference in Tennessee this week on the same subject. There's lovely Kay Mary. Madge is the rock of the electronic resources librarian who has built all of the journal finder. She's built the easy proxy. She has built all of the systems that we needed to be put in place to get out of 1999 in the library. And there's me with different hair. I need my picture retaken. So I checked with the other members of our team, and these are our tenets, the team truthiness collaborative tenets. Complementary skill sets to accomplish a shared vision. If there were 5 me's on the team, it wouldn't work. Okay, if there were 5 K's, it wouldn't work. Instead, we each bring our own expertise, and we each want to support each other to move this thing along. Truth-telling and constructive disagreement. Okay. This is key, in my opinion. My life has changed since I started telling the truth. Completely changed. And both in my personal life and my professional life. So, tough to do, okay? Take some practice, and I sometimes get it wrong and say the wrong thing because I'm a little blunt, right? But knowing that you can trust someone enough to say, I disagree with you and here's why, okay? And have you thought about looking at it this way? From a respectful, caring point of view. That's key to a good collaboration, a real collaboration. Emotional intelligence, being able to modify what's going on inside, right? Because the people I'm working with are brilliant. PhDs, masters. Erin Hart is brilliant, the writing center coordinator, right? And very, very articulate. And for me, my fear creeps up, right? I want to be the smart one. And I have to regulate that within myself and say, you know, I don't have to be the smart one, we have a smart one. I've got my own fabulousness, right? Equal voices with weight given to all suggestions. Right? No person is bigger than other, and a willingness to alter your own stuff in order to meet the goal. Because it's not about us and our personal fiefdoms anymore. It's about the students who desperately need our help in trying to navigate their way through the world. So with that, I know it's a little touchy-feely and not something that you necessarily hear in a library, but I think it's really important, having been in libraries for a long time and knowing how much success we've had in Massasoit. So, this is our information. These are the bit.lys. Again, I thought it was going to be huge, so you'll be able to write them down. That information we can easily get to you. There's about 5 minutes left. We were going to have people do like reflection questions, but of course I talk too much. Are there any thoughts? Any questions? Any comments about collaboration, about anything?
Are you doing any classroom work? Regular instruction?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's still the
Oh, yeah.
basis of everything that we do.
Yeah, we teach.
But because we do get so many classes, and especially it's so focused on the comps, that we thought that having these tutorials would allow us to sort of expand and focus more on disciplines.
That number, that 215, that's mostly comps?
About 70% of them, I said, were comps. That was a couple of years ago. We have expanded, like I've gotten into the STEM Scholars Program. Now that we have a team, and the librarians that were there before us, the head librarian was all about English. That was her topic, that was her love, that's what she did. Now we're trying to really expand into the various disciplines because we recognize that that's where the real help needs to happen. Comps can be automated. Developmental classes, they need high touch, and the disciplines, they need high touch. That's the model we're running.
A practical question. How long would you say it took you to develop all of those videos and tutorials?
We did that over the course of the summer last year. So we had a general idea that we wanted to do this project, and then we just really buckled down, and that's where the collaboration piece really came in, and listening to each other and being receptive, and we were able to get it all done over the course of the summer. Thanks to the Team Troopiness module, Matt.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Did you have the writing center create any of them?
Yes, Erin did create some of them. She helped us with all of the citation pieces, and then she has a video on synthesizing sources and using the grid. I'm blanking on what it's
The
called.
matrix.
The matrix. The
Synthesis
synthesis matrix. Organizing all of your sources. So she took care of that piece for us.
Well, thank you all for attending.
Yes.
Right? I hope it was helpful. Good. And enjoy the rest of the conference.